This is the Baltimore Sports Pub. Here's Terry Ford, Brent Harris, and Alex Woodward.
It is a Wednesday in the pub, October the 14th, and on the show today, what is the key to the Ravens' win on Sunday up in Philadelphia? We'll give you some of the keys to that matchup, and we do have our pub poll. Will the fans reshuffle the AFC North? Of course, it's a lot of Ravens fans voting, so I doubt it, but we'll see, because the AFC North right now might be the best division in all of football. And speaking of football, Terry, Tuesday night football, which has a weird sound to it. I picked the Bills yesterday. I thought they were the better team, but boy, the Titans looked really good against, I think, a good Bills team. Is Tennessee a legitimate Super Bowl contender?
Well, first of all, did someone call 911 for Josh Norman?
Oh, my goodness. Derrick Henry threw him
there.
about 6.5 yards in the air. That's how much lift he had.
That looked like one of those, like when you're watching like old school WWE wrestling and a dude just gets thrown. Yep. That looked like an old WWE throw by Derrick Henry. He just threw Josh Norman. And like, if you're Josh Norman, do you even open up your computer or your social media today? Do you even watch TV? Oh, my God. But, yeah, to your point, look, I'll be honest with you. I thought the Bills would win last night, too. The Titans have had 3 real practices in 16 days.
Yeah.
And I thought the Bills, who were undefeated coming into this game, would find a way to get a W because they've kind of been, NFL's a creature of habit. It's, everything is done in a certain way. You have your everything's laid out for you. And I thought, and the Titans were all over the place, right? It was a total opposite of what an NFL team has, right, Brent? There was no structure. Everything was like just by the seat of your pants, throwing it against the wall and see if it sticks. So I was like, the Bills will win. And, and not just the Titans won, but in the fact the Titans just punched them in the face. And look, I picked the Titans to miss the playoffs this year. I'll raise my hand. And they're only 4 games into their season. But so far, defensively, they have played well enough to win. Ryan Tannehill, what they're doing in that offense fits Tannehill. A lot of play action. They haven't forgotten who they are. Ravens, take a listen. The Titans haven't forgotten who they are. They're going to run the football and be balanced with the passing game. They've got – I tell you, again, it's early. It's 4 games. But who got to the AFC Championship game last year?
Yeah, the Titans. Yeah.
And, we forget that, and we throw that as a fluke because, we figured, okay, they beat the Ravens on a bad night, whatever. But the Titans got to the AFC Championship game last year. And the way they're playing right now, Brent, can you push them aside and say no way in hell?
Yeah. I mean, you think about the Bill Belichick kind of coaching tree. I mean, how many coaches have come out of New England as a player or a coach and have had any success?
Want to count
honestly?
Them?
Yeah, you're done.
That's
it. Except Mike Vrabel. I mean, Mike Vrabel is doing a heck of a job. And in a lot of ways, the blueprint of what Tennessee is, a very physical team, really good defensive team first. They run the football, play action, remind you a little bit about what New England is, right? I mean, they kind of have that DNA. Here's a stat for you. I found this almost shockingly interesting because we talk about Ryan Tannehill. I mean, you have said you're not a believer in Ryan Tannehill. You said it when we talked about them not making the playoffs.
Right.
Get this. In his last 14 regular season games, he has 36 touchdowns, 6 interceptions.
I know. He's playing like a top-level quarterback, and you're just sitting here thinking, at some point he's going to be the Miami Ryan Tannehill, and he hasn't been. And I'll say this about Vrabel, because to our point, the only guy on the New England Patriot coaching tree that hasn't soiled himself away from there has been Bill O'Brien, who we forget because Bill O'Brien was such a disaster as a GM that he actually won 4 division titles in 5 years in Houston, but they never advanced deep in the playoffs, and no one ever looked at them as a Super Bowl contender, right? I mean, they just never did. But Vrabel, what I think works and what these other guys don't do is they try to be Belichick. They try to be Belichick, like Matt Patricia walking up to the microphone, trying to bully everybody,
cutting the shirts off, not caring about the hygiene.
Yeah, not brushing their teeth or washing their hair. Vrabel is just, I think Mike Vrabel is just being Mike Vrabel, and he's not trying to be Bill Belichick. He's taken the good stuff he's learned from Belichick that you just brought up, but he's being himself, because you can't be Belichick. That guy is a savant. He is just, to me, he's the greatest coach ever. He just is.
I agree.
And a hell of a cheater. But you just can't.
Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
You ain't trying. That's exactly it. And look, New England's not giving back those 6 trophies, by the way.
No.
So,
and if you're not first, you're last.
Exactly. From the words of that great philosopher, Ricky Bobby.
That's it.
I mean, Brent, that's the thing. You can't be Belichick, because Belichick can't tell you how he's Belichick. The special people in any walk of life are just, they've just got something. So, Mike,
by the way, the guy closest to Belichick, he coaches in college.
Yeah, a guy named Saban, who's nuts like Belichick.
Yeah. The only cat that gets along with him, where they could go off at down to the lake and fish and hang out, like it's just those 2 dudes. That's it.
Have you ever watched the documentary with Saban and Belichick?
Yeah,
it's fabulous because they're the same guy. It's really creepy. They're the same dude. It's so weird. But yeah, so I think Vrabel has just taken the good and said, I'm going to apply it to me. And I think that's what's working. Now, again, 4 games in, Brent, I don't want to make too much of it so far, but that was an impressive beatdown they gave Buffalo last night, because I believe the Bills are a good team and are going to win the AFC East. And it's not just the Titans winning that game, but in the fashion and how they won that game. And again, talk to me again in week 8 and week 12, but in week 4, Titans looked pretty good last night, man.
It is our big story. The Ravens head up I-95 for a matchup with the Eagles on Sunday. And Terry, winning on the road, never easy in the NFL. But there will be some fans up in Philadelphia. There'll be some scattered fans up at the Link. What is, for you, the number one key for the Ravens to get a win against the Eagles?
If I'm the Eagles, the way I've been playing, do I want Philly fans in the stadium? Probably no fans has been a good idea the way the Eagles have been playing.
Remember the old days, like the 80s, where you would get the trash bag? Like the old paper trash bags. But that's all they had back then. You cut out little holes and you put it over your head.
Over your head. It's not going well.
That's a Philly fan.
My girlfriend's from Philly. She's an Eagles fan. It's not going well. It's not. The nicknames she has for Carson Wentz, we can't repeat, even on a podcast at this point. Well, the key to this game, Brent, I mean, honestly, is just wait for the Eagles to turn the ball over, because they're going to turn the ball over. Carson Wentz leads the NFL in interceptions. By the way, quarterback rating, guess how many quarterbacks have a worse quarterback rating than Carson Wentz? You ready?
Zippy.
I'm done.
Yep, that's it.
He's been awful. He's been a turnover machine, and it's still, look, the whole offense is a mess. The offensive line has had 11 different starters. Right now, their 2 best receivers, Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun Jackson, can't get on the field. So they don't have weaponry in the receiving game. The offensive line's a mess. So it's not just Carson Wentz. But if you look at Carson Wentz's like deep dive numbers, the analytic numbers, he's not playing well either. He's missing open receivers when they are open. Maybe he's so surprised someone gets open he can't hit them, but he's missing open receivers. He hasn't been effective or productive throwing the football in or out of the pocket. So the whole offense is a mess, and they turn the ball over a ton. What team likes to get turnovers, Brent?
Well, the Ravens have been pretty good at it.
Yeah, so you put a team that is – the only team that has a worse turnover rate than Philly is Dallas, and the Ravens are one of the best teams in turning you over in the NFL. That's a poor matchup for the Eagles. Now, if the Eagles cannot turn the ball over, this will be a football game, because the Eagles can hang. But because their defense, third in sacks, I think, in the NFL right now, behind the Rams and the Steelers. Excellent pressure rate on quarterbacks. The Raven offense is kind of sputtering. The Eagles, so here's the funniest part about the Eagles, Brent. Even though they have a good pass rush, they give up plays in the passing game. So if you can protect Lamar, or Lamar can buy himself some time, there might be some plays in the passing game for them. But here's what the Eagles do well. They stop the run. 3.9 yards an attempt against that defense. So you and I screaming and yelling about getting the run game going, this will be a week you go up against a team that actually has had some success stopping the run. So to me, the key is turnovers. The Eagles love to turn it over. The Ravens love to make you turn it over. You get 2 or 3 of those, you should walk out of Philly with a nice win.
I think one of the interesting stats, the Eagles have given up 19 sacks this season, right? So Carson Wentz has been pressured. He's been hit a lot. Last week, what did we see out of this Ravens defense?
Yeah, they finally got it going.
Quarterback, right?
Yep.
Not only the sacks, which they got, I think every defensive back, by the way, had a sack in the game.
Yes.
Right? Not only the front, but you get production from the back with some of the blitz packages that they're running.
Yeah, Ed Reed had a sack. Our old buddy Bruce Laird had a sack.
Bernard Pollard
had a sack. Bernard Pollard. And then he went and hit Harbaugh.
Anyway. Punched him right in the gut. But also getting hits on the quarterback. So the pressure they're putting on him. If there's a quarterback in the NFL right now, Terry, that can't handle pressure, it's probably Carson Wentz, right? He's got more interceptions than he has touchdowns this season. He has been a mess. And I think you make a great point. He doesn't have his weapons. He just doesn't have his weapons. And Zach Ertz, a guy that he really has relied on, has been pedestrian at best. He's third on the team right now in receiving yards, and that's without Jeffries and Jackson really being in, any production out of the top two guys at that wide receiver position. And so that offense is struggling, and they go against a defense that now is hitting their stride a little bit. So we'll see if the Ravens can keep that momentum going. Speaking of defense, Patrick Queen was voted the AFC Defensive Player of the Week, and of course, it was well-deserved. I mean, he was all over the field against the Bengals. As you mentioned, the Ravens are a +5 in turnover ratio. That, to me, too, is the stat going into this Sunday matchup. You said that's the one to watch. It sounds cliche, Terry.
Every week.
Right? You can always say, like, whoever wins the turnover battle is going to win the game. Well, it happens because it happens a lot that way.
Yeah.
And the Eagles are a -6. We talk about how good the Ravens have been. The Eagles are giving it away. And their offense, 28th in the NFL. So while they have a good defense, if the Ravens can score points, the Eagles can't keep up. That's sort of the way I'm looking at it.
Yeah, I look, and you're right. We can say every week, well, whoever wins the turnover battle, it's like saying, who's going to win? Whoever has the most points on the scoreboard, that's who's going to win. So, yeah, but this week, because the Eagles have been so generous turning the ball over, and because the Ravens have been so good at taking the ball away, that's why I think it's really big this week. Because that's been the big Achilles heel. If you look through all the Eagles games, the biggest problem has been the turnovers. And the Eagles, in the second half of games, have been getting worked. So whether it's the third quarter, fourth quarter, they've had some issues coming out of halftime. And going to Patrick Queen real quick. I mean, he obviously had a monster game against the Bengals. But you know what? He has been progressing as we move through this year. He's had some issues in pass coverage. At one point, he was ranked the worst linebacker in pass coverage by Pro Football Focus. He'd really been struggling. He got benched in the Kansas City game. He didn't know where the hell he was at. Yep. But you know what? Again, he's a rookie. He hadn't started a lot of games in college. But when you watch his athleticism, Brent, and his sideline-to-sideline speed and nose for the ball in the run game, and he has had some success blitzing the quarterback, you got to be happy with where he's at. And you just hope as he learns the pass coverage game a little bit better, he'll start to be a true 3-down linebacker. But you got to be happy with Patrick Queen, man. He's
well. The rest of that stuff, Terry, is coachable, right? What you can't coach is the speed, the athleticism. That's a God-given born talent that he has, and so there's going to be an adjustment. And he was a late bloomer at LSU. I mean, it wasn't until his last year there that people saw him as, a top-end NFL linebacker, and obviously going in the first round. But he really skyrocketed the last year, and really the last half of the last year. And so we knew that there might be some growing pains with Patrick Queen. But, boy, the last couple of weeks, for a guy that was really struggling in covering tight ends and pass coverage, you would look, he'd have 10, 11, 12 tackles a game. But I don't think he was playing the way the Ravens really wanted him to play, because he was getting beat a lot in pass coverage. He looked good the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and the tackle stat to me is always interesting, because if you're making a tackle 7 yards downfield in the run game, is that an effective tackle? No. Are you making impactful tackles within 2 or 3 yards of the ball? Right? That's what the tackle stat I'd love to see. Tackles you make within 2 or 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. And I think as we've seen him move along, you see more impactful plays around the line of scrimmage, especially in the run game with him. And obviously, he's had some good moments blitzing. Look, you got to be happy with Patrick Queen, man.
Oh, absolutely. And you talk about tackle within 2 or 3 yards of the ball carrier. Ray Lewis would get a tackle if he was just standing within 4 or 5 yards of a ball carrier. He'd just dive on the pile at the end, and they'd say half sack or half tackle.
What they do with Ray, like the stat guy would be like, "Where's Ray? Oh, he's getting some Gatorade. It's close enough. We'll give him a tackle.
Yep.
Close enough. We'll give Ray a tackle."
Did you see the way he was cheering from the sideline? He has to get at least half a tackle on that.
Do you remember when Ed Hartwell got pissed about that and said that Ray's tackle numbers weren't right? Like Ed's like, I should be getting more tackles than Ray.
And then where did Ed go? I think Atlanta.
Exactly.
I never heard from him again.
Yeah,
that's
what
happened.
Milk cartons after that. Yeah, Ed, you should have shut your mouth and enjoyed yourself.
Let's go around the NFL, Terry. Our pub poll today, now that we've seen a couple of games, and of course we have a better idea of the teams in the AFC North. Who do you think will win the division? I am shocked. Absolutely shocked, Terry, that the Ravens at 4-1 right now got 89% of the vote.
Stop it. In Baltimore, with Baltimore fans, Baltimore Ravens fans picked the Baltimore Ravens. Yeah. Are you serious?
I was somewhat interested to see second and third, right? Because Pittsburgh's undefeated at 4-0. Cleveland all of a sudden is playing some good football. They're 4-1. 8% of the vote went to Pittsburgh, only 2% to Cleveland. Somebody picked Cincinnati, got 1%.
Joe Burrow.
Joe Burrow, for some reason, is following Baltimore Sports Pub. But that brings us to the matchup on Sunday because we've got the Steelers and the Browns. 2 teams playing really good right now. When you look at the matchup, who wins?
I think the Steelers are the better overall team. I do. And plus, the Browns have to prove something to you, right? I mean, look, they give them credit. And I'll be honest with you. Their win over Indy is better than any of the Steelers' wins this year, right now. So the Browns have a better win on their docket because I think Indianapolis, if Phillip Rivers can stop throwing the ball to the other team, Indianapolis is a really good squad. So that Cleveland win I thought was legit. But I think Pittsburgh's a better team. And if the Pittsburgh defense, they're getting after quarterbacks, Brent, but they're not making impactful plays like they did last year. Minkah Fitzpatrick isn't quite as good on the back end as he was last year. So I think the Steeler defense isn't quite where it was last season, but the Steeler offense is ready. It was here last year, and it's way up here now.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Roethlisberger, he threw the ball downfield well last week. That's been a problem coming back for Ben. He's been doing a lot of little wide receiver screens and short crossing routes. They're starting to open up a little bit, and Ben's starting to throw it down the field a little bit. So if the Steeler offense gets cooking and the defense even gets close to what they were last year, to me, they're the most dangerous team to the Ravens or the Steelers. And I think they win this Sunday.
So the big question is, can the Browns run the football against Pittsburgh? And Cleveland right now, number 1 in the NFL running the football, but Pittsburgh, boy, they hang their hat on stopping the run. And the interesting thing is, if the Browns can run the football, and this thing is a close game going into the fourth quarter, that Baker Mayfield this season, if you've seen his production, when he gets to the fourth quarter, it really drops off. He has the lowest QBR of any quarterback in the fourth quarter. And so this is a team that relies on the run. And then if they put the ball into Baker's hands in the fourth quarter, he has not been getting it done.
No, he hasn't been.
Yeah, and so I look at that and think, if I'm going to bet this game and I've got Ben Roethlisberger in the fourth quarter and Baker Mayfield in the fourth quarter, who are you taking?
I'll take the 38-year-old guy with a bad elbow over the guy doing the Home Depot commercials.
Although they're good.
Honestly, I'll say this. They are damn funny with Baker. I like he's got the groceries in his hand and he can't get his keys.
He's kicking the gate.
We've all been there, by the way. That's what's so funny about it.
I was just there yesterday.
I'm there I feel like I'm there 3 times a week. Well, I'll say this. Let's give Kevin Stefanski his props. Because Kevin Stefanski, again, last year was a coaching disaster in Cleveland and a culture disaster and everything. Stefanski came in, and like what Gary Kubiak did for Joe Flacco in 2014, Stefanski came in with no loyalties. He didn't have a dog in the fight. He objectively showed up, watched the film. This is what Baker Mayfield is. This is what he isn't. If I want my offense to be good, we have to do this. And they beefed up the offensive line in the offseason, and they have good running backs. and they're running the ball to set up play action, and they got really good receivers, and you got a real coach now, Brent. So would I be surprised if the Browns end up being for real this year and making the playoffs? No, I would not be surprised. But I think, like, and you said it too, the AFC North right now looks really good with these three teams sitting at the top of it. I still think it goes Baltimore, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, but I wouldn't be surprised if all three made the playoffs.
Imagine that. A good coach actually has an effect.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
Positive effect on a team.
How about that? Somebody who knows what the hell they're doing. They're not used to that in Cleveland. By the way, how does Truck Stop Jimmy, the owner of the Browns, how does Truck Stop Jimmy screw this up? Because he will. You know he will. He always does. He will.